Tony, first of all, would it be fair to say that, given the transport issues earlier in the week, so on this week can only get better?
Tuesday was an eventful day right from the beginning. It was an hour day, whichever way you look at it, from the start even to the finish. You know, to spend, what was it, 7 hours on the bus coming back, having been on a plane ready to take off, and then the pilot stopping it even, you know, when it's taxied out to get going, and sit on there for half an hour, 40 minutes, and then having to call the bus back when it's halfway down the motorway to come back and pick us up and take us home. But yeah, get on with it. It's part of life.
Well, that may be. To what extent does that disrupt the preparations you had for this game? Because 2 games in a week.
Well, it's not good preparation, but you know we've got to get on with it. That's you know, it's happened, and you have to deal with it. You know, there's our trip was a long trip. It was a poor trip. It was a disappointing trip. You know, the supporters as well. You know, they've travelled. I don't think people. They travelled 12 hours and stood behind an open terrace with the weather tipping down. So, you know, you've got to think of them as well. You know, it's not just us who've had a poor day of it. You know, the supporters who've travelled and got absolutely soaked and watched their team get well beaten. You know, that was a disappointment for them as well.
There was some speculation that there was a disagreement between a couple of players and supporters. Are you able to shed any light on that?
Irrespective of, yeah, I've spoken to the players yesterday about it. Irrespective of, you know, what supporters, what reaction you get from the supporters. As I've said before, you know, we're custodians of this football club. We're not here for life. Those supporters are. It's there. They've been born into supporting this football club, and and a lot of them, their lives revolve around the football club, and you have to show them respect. Even if you are being criticised, you know, they have the right to criticise you. They have the right to say what they want, as long as it's done in a right manner. And I can understand the supporters getting a bit frustrated, but like I say, I've had a chat with the players yesterday, and you know, we've sorted 1 or 2 things out.
Is there any disciplinary action, or are you happy that?
No, we've sorted 1 or 2 things out. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, let's look ahead to Leeds then. Team news first of all. How are you shaping up?
Well, we picked up a couple of niggles on Tuesday. We'll have a look at them today. Obviously, yesterday we didn't do a lot. I've travelled for 24 hours non-stop, and the lads missing out on a night's sleep. We didn't do a lot yesterday. So a lot of it will be done today. A lot of preparation will be done today. So let's hope Bielsa and his group are in the bushes. They'll see everything we're going to do today.
It was a tight game. First up, when you met
yes.
Middlesbrough, are you expecting a similar affair this time? I
think they've been fantastic. I think they've been a breath of fresh air. The way they've played, the way he goes about things, it's very, very interesting. It's been very interesting for me as a coach to listen to people who've worked with him and been around him and actually watch his teams play. He's interesting and he's different. But I find it refreshing when you know, people sometimes comment about too many foreign coaches coming into our game. I don't think he's mediocre. I think he's top draw, and top draw coaches coming into England can only help the English game and help people in this country develop. Yeah, if they're mediocre coaches, if they're not as good as what we've got, then they shouldn't be here just because they're foreign, and sometimes that might be the case. But when you bring in the top ones in, you know, it's been refreshing for me over the past 10, 12 years to see people longer than that, to see people come in from abroad and actually enhance our football. And they've done that, not just the players, but the coaches, the top coaches have.
Well, you've said that it's interesting, and there's a quip about looking through the bushes. Do you understand where he's coming from when perhaps he says, I don't understand necessarily why there's the furore over it all?
Well, he's clever in what he does. So, you know, there's all sorts of stuff going on in his mind, I should imagine. So, but we get on with what we get on with, and I get on with what I get on with. I've always been, you know, a very, very hard-working person who, you know, who looks at things in depth, and I've always tried to get the best out of what I've got. And I've always tried to achieve the best results for what I'm given. That's always been my remit as an individual. to be honest as I possibly can and work as hard as I can to get the best out of what I'm given. And I think if you have a look at Marcello, I think he's the same. I think, you know, he drops on stuff and he works really, really hard to get the best out of people. And yeah, it's been interesting reading stuff about him, and obviously I had that hour with him after the game when we played, and yeah, I found him an interesting character.
In that hour, did you get a greater insight into perhaps how his mind works and what he sees and so on?
No, not really. We had an interpreter there, and it was going back and forth. We had a beer together. We sat down and had a beer together, and like I say, it was good. But watching his team, he's got an identity. You can see what he's trying to achieve. You can see what the team are trying to achieve. You can see that he's got control of the team. You can see that they're trying in lots of ways to reproduce what he's doing on the training ground. So there's an identity there, and that always impresses me as a coach and a manager. I hate going to football games and watching teams play and look at them and think, I don't know what they're trying to achieve. You know, whichever way they're cooking it, you just can't see what they're trying to achieve. I always enjoy going to games, and you can see, you know, that they've worked on stuff, and that they're trying to work a certain way and work a certain system to the way that benefits the players they've got.
With that in mind, and I remember before the first game we were sat here and I suggested that perhaps your team was more direct than his, and you said, well, hang on, look at the way they played, and Leeds can be direct themselves at times when they want to. In what you've seen since that game, has Marcelo's team evolved? Do they play differently now? Have you seen changes? No,
they're very similar. Yeah, very similar. They'll play long, they'll play short. They mix it up, but they play very similar. They got good rotation in areas, and they certainly work hard. You know, I don't think anybody talks about the effort and commitment that team put in, but he gets everybody up to a certain level, and they have to perform to a certain level physically to be in his teams, never mind technically.
Thank you.
Tony, psychologically, do the players just have to blot Tuesday out and then take that sort of euphoria after the West Brom game into the Leeds game?
Tuesday? What happened Tuesday? You know, we move on. What happened last Saturday against West Brom, we've moved on. It moved on a lot quicker after the Tuesday result. But no, that's what you do, you move on. You have to move on. We've got an important game coming up against Leeds, so all that is past now. And you know, the players have got to understand that, make sure they're ready for tomorrow.
And of course, they had a top-of-the-table clash with Norwich, which they lost, so they're not exactly coming to the game brimful of confidence after that, possibly.
He'll be saying exactly the same. Yeah, new game, new start, new 90 minutes. And, you know, no two games are the same. They're up there because they've been, you know, as good as anybody in the league this year, better than most. And we know it's going to be a tough game. For
people in the south of the region, I suppose this is more of a derby than Tyne and Weir, so the atmosphere will get all the players up, presumably. Yeah,
you know, we're nearly sold out. I don't think we're that far away from being sold out. You know, Leeds are bringing a lot of supporters. It's a big club, you know, fabulous support. You know, they've got a top manager and some good players. You know, Patrick will be coming back, and Jack, two wonderful lads. You know, Patrick was a really, really good lad. I really enjoyed him. He's full of life. You know, he's come from a very privileged background and got slaughtered for it. But no, he's a very, very good lad. I like Patrick. And Jack Harrison was a wonderful kid. You know, his parents can be really, really proud of him. He's a real lovely kid. And he's one that when they leave you, you're always looking to see how they've done, because he left such a good impression in respect of his character and his personality. So it'd be nice to see those two back.
I shouldn't imagine.
And Forshaw, obviously, I forgot, but they say he's injured, but it'll be nice to see him as well.
I shouldn't imagine you're superstitious, but beware of the old boys coming back to haunt you. Is that?
Well, that's always the case. I think if you know, if we're playing against players who've been here and have done well for you, they'll always come back and want to leave a mark. So you know that you have to understand that, and you have to take that.
Part of the whole thing on Tuesday was watching sort of Hugel and Assombalonga sort of hobble off. Now you've hinted that you're going to
Tuesday. We've got a couple of injuries. We'll have a look at them today, and we'll go from there.
But any hint on? But you didn't think they were serious, particularly at the time.
Well, like I say, coming back, like I say, having 24 hours of no rest. you know, was and bringing him in yesterday was we just opened him up really. Got all the stuff out of him. We'll see what they're like today. We'll see how bright they are today, and we'll pick a team that we think is going to give us the best opportunity in the first hour. And if we have to leave one or two out who played on Tuesday and leave them for later on, then we'll do that. We'll pick what we think is right.
Tony, I know a lot of jokes have been made about Spygate and what have you, but are you a little bit surprised that the situation still hasn't really been resolved in terms of the footballing authorities?
As I've said before, you know, we watch games, we do stuff that Marcello's done differently, you know, but we're still doing it. We're still watching games and teams have played and this, that and the other. They all do it in a different way. He has to do what he has to do, and the authorities have to do what they have to do. I'm just concerned about Middlesbrough Football Club. As I've said, I've got great respect for him. I've only met him once, but I've looked at the way he's worked at Leeds and what he's done there and how he's achieved it. And obviously we've got people who have told us things about the way he prepares teams and the way he works. He's a very, very dedicated man and really obsessed with football and the game. So, yeah, interesting.
I hear what you're saying, but there is a difference between sending some of your scouts to watch a match in a stadium to sending a guy with a pair of wire cutters and binoculars to a training ground.
That's all a game, mate. You know, you can do whatever you want before the game. When the whistle goes, those players go over that white line. And they've been absolutely fantastic this year, Leeds. You know, for all what you talk about, what his preparations, what he's done, what he doesn't do, the players still have to go out and play. You know, you can have all the information in the world. If they go out there and don't perform, you've got no chance. You know, it's about players. We spend too much time talking about what coaches do, what other people do, and what this happens. It's the players. The players go out there. They're the ones who win and lose your games.
Does it demonstrate, though, that you know, it really is fine margins within football to the point where a rival manager thinks he could get the better of you by sending someone to a training ground to spy?
I don't think it's that. I just think it's most probably his way of trying to be as thorough as he possibly can, and we try to be as thorough as we possibly can. And you know, we won't send someone out with wire cutters, but we'll do as much as we can to find out what the team is and what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. You know, it's the game. It's been going on for hundreds of years. You know, I started management 1,000,000 years ago, and you know, I do everything I possibly could in those days. We didn't have the TV. We didn't have the exposure you've got now. And I was working in the lower leagues, but I'd be ringing, you know, journalists up or people that had been at football clubs who knew the football clubs and knew the managers, knew the way they worked. I'd try and glean as much information as I could before those games. That was the way it was, and that's the way it is, and it still is. The easy thing for the coaches today and the managers today is that you can get a recording of any game you want now in any league. Sit there and watch it for hours and hours and hours. Take clips off it and, you know, break it down. You can do it if you want to do it.
Just last one. I know you sort of touched on this already, but were you a little bit dismayed in a way that you spoke very passionately after deadline day about the need for everyone to come together? So did it upset you to sort of see these reports, fans and players sort of clashing?
I'm lucky enough to be too old to be on Twitter and all those things that go on with those phones that you've got. So I don't have that, so I don't understand it. I don't realise and recognise how important it is to certain people. Speaking to the players, there might have been one player who's reacted, the others didn't. And what other things that have been put out there, again, is just beyond me, how people can just write stuff that is completely and utterly untrue and not be pulled up for it. I just find it astonishing that you can actually do things like that. And maybe one day the world will spin around and people will start reading stuff that is true and not fake and made up, because it's not making the world a better place, it's making it a worse place.